Have a look just at how it all works. As we know, this is the last remaining tally room in Australia where the public are also allowed to come along and see the votes as they fall, the thrills and spills as those seats get put in. But I am with Jenna Cairney, who's the editor of the Tasmanian Mercury. Jenna, let's take a look at some of these seats in the north. So if we look particularly at Bass to start off with, we knew Premier Peter Gutwein this time going in as the leader, that would definitely be a help. But gee, hasn't he done well so far?
My goodness, it's surprising. I mean, Peter Gutwein so far is performing amazingly well in the polls. The thing is, we always knew he would do well in the north. We always suspected that his coronavirus response to the pandemic would play out well with voters. But we had a former Premier in Will Hodgman who was a very, very popular, very, very charismatic man. We've got Peter Gutwein, who's got a bit of a rougher edge about him. Some would call him a bit of a clenched fist. But now he's resonating with voters in the north. But there's a bit of a power change as well. And you know, we've got the Premier, we've got the Deputy Premier in the north, we've got the Minister for Health and Jenna Cairney also in the north.
And all in the one seat.
Exactly. It's a really powerful group of politicians. And let's not forget that Tasmania as a state is very spread out as well. We've got our Hobart bubble that we know all about, and it has population. Of course, it has density. But there are more people living in the north and northwest than there are in the Hobart bubble. And we can't underestimate the power of that vote. And it's just remarkable to see the performance and how well rewarded Peter Gutwein has so far been in the polling.
And if you look at the difference between him and Will Hodgman, I mean, Will Hodgman was always that Premier, I guess, who would get the personal vote. Even if people didn't like the Liberals, they liked him. So they'd vote for him. And we sort of weren't perhaps expecting as much of that with Peter Gutwein, but clearly being in front of the media every day, being in front of Tasmanians every day during COVID has certainly helped him, I guess, reveal some more of his personal side to people.
There was no starker contrast than when Will Hodgman resigned and when Peter Gutwein took over the position. We could see that hard edge. We could see that defensiveness and questioning with Peter Gutwein. But during the coronavirus crisis, he really showed a different side of himself. He even cried in a press conference or two. I mean, he's nicknamed Pappy G on social media.
And speaking of social media, that python tattoo.
Oh, no, it's a Black Panther.
Black Panther, rather.
We're still waiting to find out what's on the other arm. I mean, all of a sudden last week he rolls up his sleeve and comes up with this Black Panther tattoo, and social media goes wild about Pappy G and what's on the other arm. He is sometimes an enigma, but he has, during the coronavirus crisis, certainly played himself as the hard-nosed dad of Tasmania, which is really interesting.
And so if we look at the seat of Bass, at one stage there was perhaps thought that, there'd be an outside chance that they could get 4 seats up there. That's now not looking, it's looking even further afield that could actually occur. And if we look at Labor, Janie Finlay, she really is saving the furniture for them. She's really got that sort of personal appeal about her.
Well, she has the expertise, she has the history, and she's got that rock star, persona, and she's certainly holding her numbers up there. But the Gutwein factor is very, very strong, and the talent that they have in Bass is going to be hard to beat for Labor. But I think, looking at Braddon, and I think that's really interesting what's happening there, especially when we look at the votes that are coming in for Adam Brooks and how that plays out. We've had serious scandal in the last few days about that candidate. Don't forget he stepped down in the last term of government as well. Peter Gutwein has backed him in because he is a vote hoover. What's going to happen with his votes? That's the big question.
Well, if we look at the way it's splitting out now, it would appear that one of the surprises about that would be Felix Ellis, because he's the fellow that came in, replaced Adam Brooks replaced Adam Brooks's replacement after the last scandal, and now it would appear that he's actually getting some decent votes in his own right, where it was sort of thought that he might be the casualty initially if Adam Brooks were to come back in.
And rightly so, because Peter Gutwein is going to have big questions to answer whenever this result is finalised, if the allegations about Adam Brooks are proved true. He stepped down from Parliament in the last term. There are serious allegations floating around about whether or not he's telling the truth. He is a vote hoover, though. He beat Jeremy Rockcliffe in the 2014 election in terms of the number of votes that he got. Was it a cynical move by the Gutwein team? That's a question that absolutely needs to be answered.
Yeah, certainly have far-reaching implications with that one. And just finally, whilst we sort of sit in that area of Braddon, Roger Jensch, he could be the one that really falls as a result if Felix does get up. He's had a really tough portfolio with housing here in Tasmania.
Roger Jensch struggles. He struggles performing. He struggles at press conferences. He struggles being asked questions. He's had shocking performances in Parliament, but he's a senior and a key member of the Liberal Party. Very interesting to see how he's polling tonight.
Thanks very much, Jenna Cairney. We'll catch up with you again soon. Back to you, Karen.